Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole, and I am an alcoholic. This morning, we're going to be doing a workshop on letting go of resentments and dealing with anger through the AA program. It's drafted by John A. from West Palm Beach, Florida. Stop taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Don't let people live rent-free in your head. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our workshop on letting go of unhealthy fears. The reason we have these workshops is to work on the underlying issues behind alcoholism. If alcohol was the problem, most of us would be cured by now. Alcohol was but a symptom. Let's start with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We're happy to have you here making this investment in your sobriety. You're making a huge deposit into your IRA, new individual recovery account. By being here and participating, keep making these deposits no matter how small, because one day you may have a situation that will require you to make a huge withdrawal and you don't want your IRA to be depleted. You could be watching ESPN and waiting for the games to begin, cutting the grass, out shopping, or binge watching on Netflix. We will be using both AA conference approved literature and non-AA conference approved literature. Just because something is not AA conference approved does not mean it is disapproved by the AA conference. The Bible is not conference approved. The chips and medallions are not conference approved. The newspaper is not conference approved. Do yourself a favor and don't put restrictions on your sobriety. Oftentimes, the ties that bind us are more mental than physical. Here's an example. In India, one method of training elephants is to tie a baby elephant to a tree with a thick, heavy chain, thereby severely restricting its movement and almost immobilizing it. After a long time of this treatment, all an elephant handler has to do is tie a rope around the elephant and put a stake in the ground to keep the elephant in place. The elephant is so conditioned to thinking that it is unable to move that some of them have been found dead in place after a fire. All the elephant had to do was try to move, and it would have escaped the fire, but it thought it was still chained to a tree. By letting go of resentments and dealing with your anger, you will be freeing yourself from what's keeping you from being happily and usefully whole. 12 and 12, page 15. AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. You will also be breaking the ties that bind you and keep you from growing. There will be a question and answers session at the end of this workshop, so please save your questions until then. So, what is the purpose of this mini workshop? Is it meant to get you to like everyone or get everyone to like you? Perhaps you think that after this mini workshop, you will go through life and never get angry again. Well, I hope you don't get angry with me, but we're not here to get you so spiritual that you can walk on water. Actually, even the guy who allegedly walked on water got mad once. The purpose of this mini workshop is to help you gain your freedom from resentments and place you in a position of neutrality when it comes to people who have harmed you, whether real or perceived. Whenever you have a resentment, you give that person power over you. You're allowing this person to live rent-free in your head. Chances are that if you drive by their house at 2 a.m., you'll see their lights off and curtains drawn while they sleep. But here you are hating them and letting them rob you of your sleep, peace, and of mind and serenity. You're not powerless over people, places, and things. You may not have power over them, but you are not powerless. If you have control over yourself and your emotions, you're in control. So definition of resentment, a feeling of indignant displeasure or persistent ill will at something regarded as a wrong, insult, or injury. Resentment is a process where we repeatedly replay feelings of hurt and the events that led up to. However, when we go through the event in our mind, we don't just think of the facts, we also relieve all the feelings associated with it. It affects us over and over again, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So you don't think it's that big of a deal if you just have one little tiny itty bitty itsy bitsy resentment. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. Page 64. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility. Page 66. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to unhappiness. Page 66. To the precise extent that we permit these, we do squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. Page 66. But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. Page 66. We found that this business of resentment is fatal. Page 66. From when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from sunlight of the spirit. Page 66. When we harbor resentment, the insanity of alcohol returns. Page 66. When we harbor resentment, we drink again. Page 66. For alcoholics, these things are poison. Page 66. We begin to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, resentment, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. Page 66. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility. Page 70. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. Page 70. Never forget that resentment is a deadly hazard to an alcoholic. Page 117. The greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, frustration, and fear. Page 145. We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? Big Book, page 66. How do the AA steps help us deal with anger and resentment? Let's start with steps 4 and 5. After doing a searching and fearless moral inventory, you discuss it with someone else who should help you look at things from a different perspective. If you are searching and fearless in that inventory, you'll start seeing your part in a situation. Seeing your part in a situation does not mean that you are at fault at it at all. It does not mean that you are to blame for what happened to you. Your part in the situation is to let it go through AA and the steps. Get some counseling, therapy, and move on so that the situation no longer controls you. In the 4th edition of the Big Book, page 544 and 552, Freedom from Bondage, you'll find a great story which illustrates the point better than I can. We then move on to steps 6 and 7, where we identify our character defects and then ask God to remove our shortcomings. Anger and resentment are just two of the many, many, many defects of character that every single human being who has ever lived has had to deal with. People have gotten a resentment against me when the topic of resentments comes up in AA meeting. And when called upon, I announced that I have absolutely no resentments in my life right now. I haven't had any resentment since going through my divorce in 2001. It took several months, but I was able to let go of the resentments that I had toward my ex-wife. I still get highly upset, mad, and angry at times, but I let it go before it became a resentment. When I first came into the program, it was suggested that you burn or carefully dispose of your 4th step. That philosophy seems to have changed over the last 10 to 20 years. It's now suggested that you hold on to your step 4 so that it will be easier to do your 8th step. However you do it is up to you, but after doing your 8th step list, it asks that you become willing to make the amends. The 8th and 9th steps are all about you. I highly suggest that you get some guidance before making any amends. The person or institution may benefit from your amends, but you will reap the most benefit because of the freedom that it provides you. If we continue to take that personal inventory, in step 10, we can analyze ourselves several times a day, and if some harm was done to us, we can promptly deal with it. We try to see our part in the situation and let go of any anger before it becomes a resentment. I dealt with a situation many years ago where I perceived that I was wrong, but wound up apologizing to the person. With the help of prayer and meditation in step 11, we learn to deal with anger by getting angry less often. You can diffuse a situation before it escalates and people get in their feelings. Everything has a cause and effect. And by becoming interested in the cause, you're less likely to dislike the effect. When someone gets angry at you, Try not to take it personally. Immediately consider the source. Try to think of what's really bothering this person. In many instances, you are not the source of their anger. By getting outside of yourself with step 12, it takes your mind off your anger and resentment. Find someone to help in or out of Alcoholics Anonymous. The best form of self-medicating you can do in AA is to find someone new in the program to work with. This is what's suggested in page 89 of the Big Book. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you. To have a host of friends, this is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is a bright spot of our lives. AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. 12 and 12, page 50. Okay, having done the 12 steps, you're now free of any resentments, right? Well, you may be resentment-free after doing the steps, but as the steps become a way of life, you may build up a resentment or two. I had 19 years in AA when I started going through my divorce in 2001. So after 19 years, I had a major resentment that I had to contend with. But by the grace of God, people in the program, and my own efforts, I got rid of that resentment and haven't had one since. Anger or resentment. Back in the day, these gravely voiced guys would say that they were born with a resentment from the day the doctor smacked them on the behind. And some of them asked them, and some of them said they'd been looking for him ever since. Other old guys from New York would say that they'd had a resentment ever since the Dodgers left Brooklyn. I'm here to tell you that it's okay to get angry. There is such a thing as justifiable anger. If you see someone abusing a child or even an animal and you don't get mad, then there's probably something wrong with you. It's okay to get mad. If someone cuts you off on the I-95, it's okay to get mad. You may run into problems if you haven't let it go by the time you reach the next exit or destination. Getting angry is a human frailty. The difference between being angry and being resentful is the time lapse. If someone slaps you in the face today, you have every right to get angry. I don't believe in turning the other cheek since they'll probably slap at you. Now, if you're still angry about that slap, 3, 6, or 9 months from now, then you become the problem because now you have a resentment. You don't get a resentment if someone steps on your toes at a party. You may be upset and even angry, but it's not a resentment. If someone stands you up on a date, you don't get a resentment. You might get angry. If someone stands you up on a date at the altar, that might lead to a resentment. Anger is not always a bad thing. Many sports involve controlled rage. Michael Jordan used to take the smallest critic and use that as a fuel to motivate him. Tom Brady is said to play with a chip on his shoulder because of how low he was drafted. I can almost guarantee you that AA groups have expanded as rapidly as they have because of anger and resentments. I might even go so far as to say that AA got its start because of some anger and resentment, in as much as Bill Wilson got tired of the Oxford group, calling them the alcoholic arm of the Oxford group. Bill and the folks in New York broke away from the Oxford group 2 years after AA was founded. Dr. Bob did not break away from the Oxford group in Akron, Ohio, until 4 years after AA was founded. If you get pissed off at a person or group, all you need to do is get a coffee pot and a few chairs, and you can start your own meeting. Some people might even attribute their sobriety to anger and resentment over those who said they would never get this program. It's all right to get sober that way, but eventually they had to stay sober for themselves. Some people in AA say that they don't get resentment get resentments, they give them. I tend to keep those type of people at arm's length. Rent-free space. As I stated earlier, when you harbor a resentment, you allow someone to live rent-free in your head. If you drive by their house at 2 a.m., you'll find them sound asleep while you're stewing over your resentment. They have all the power. When I sponsor or mentor someone, I always analyze their assertiveness as skills. If you are assertive, you will get angry less often. Therefore, you will have fewer resentments because you can then adjust situations as they occur in whatever manner is necessary. Assertiveness, having or showing a confident and forceful personality. People treat you the way you tell them to treat you, based on your voice, facial expression, and body language. The Four Agreements, a practical guide to personal freedom, done by Don Miguel Ruiz, is a book that I highly recommend. Forgiveness or letting go. Forgive. Stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, flaw, or mistake. How do you let go of a resentment? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practical and hard work is how you will let go of a resentment. Only through practice and hard work will you ever get to play at Carnegie Hall in New York. One of the best ways to let go of resentment is through forgiveness. When you forgive someone, you continue to have a relationship with that person, as though the transgression never occurred. There is no such thing as forgive and forget, because nobody forgets where they buried the hatchet, but you no longer wish to bury it in that person's head. You no longer harbor any ill will towards that person, and you move forward together. Quite often, people say that they forgave someone, when in actuality, they only let go of the situation. When you let go of the situation, you no longer have any ill will towards that person, but you also don't want a relationship with them either. It's that simple. This person no longer dominates your thoughts every waking minute, and sometimes even while you sleep. You no longer plot revenge. You've become neutral to that person. The sound of their voice no longer irritates you. The sight of them no longer bothers you. The opposite of love is not hate, since hate is also an emotion. The opposite of love is apathy. You simply don't care about that person any longer. The person still has power over you if they can push your buttons. You take your power back when they can no longer push those buttons. Benefits of forgiving or letting go. Features are nothing without benefits. A salesman shouldn't try to sell grandma a new Mustang convertible that will go from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds if all grandma wants to do is visit her grandchildren after church every Sunday. The Mustang has some great features which are of no benefit to her. Why the heck should you do the 12 steps if there's nothing in it for you? Well, Bill Wilson made sure to let you know about the benefits of doing the steps by including many promises in the big book. So why the heck should you go through all the trouble of forgiveness? For the great benefits. When you forgive or let go, helps you forgive yourself, lowers blood pressure, less stress, anxiety, and hostility, extends your life, better quality of life, fewer symptoms of depression, greater spiritual and psychological well-being, healthier relationships, higher self-esteem, stronger immune system. So the dangers of anger and resentment: heart attack or stroke risk, weakens your immune system, more anxiety and stress and depression, and shortens your life and not your spiritual fitness. How long to wait before forgiving? Forgiveness is an action word. Why wait at all? After the horrible Amish school shooting of 10 young schoolgirls and one of Amish schools in 2006, the Amish community reached out to the killer's family. The family was invited to the funeral of one of the Amish girls who had been killed. And Amish mourners outnumbered the non-Amish at Charles Roberts' funeral. Sandy Beach gives a great talk on forgiveness. His daughter was murdered, and he talks about how he had to work on forgiveness. If you're going to use the AA program and work on forgiveness in 2 months, a year, or even 5 years, why not forgive today? Why not forgive the minute the harm is done? Think about it. Think of all the anguish you will save yourself. You know now the benefits of forgiveness or letting go. You also know the harm that you cause yourself by holding on to resentment. If you were wrong today, why not forgive today? This is something that I'm constantly thinking about so that I can implement it if I ever need to. Emotional sobriety and maturity. My emotional sobriety is not based on what happens in my life, but on the attitude towards what happens. I try to have an attitude of gratitude in everything that happens in my life. When something bad happens to me, I thank God that it wasn't worse. If I get into a car accident and I get hurt, I thank God that I wasn't too badly injured or that I wasn't crippled. I've also had to grow up in the program and stop being such a sensitive little crybaby. I've been sober many decades, but I have to continue putting in the work in order to keep my emotions in check. I try not to get angry too often and get rid of the anger before it becomes a resentment. I'm in absolutely no jeopardy of drinking anytime soon as long as I continue to stay in fit spiritual condition. If I continue to let people get under and stay under my skin, then it affects my emotional sobriety. And I will eventually become a dry drunk who is miserable in AA. If I am miserable for too long, then eventually I will seek solace in the bar. What is emotional sobriety? Certainly it involves managing emotions in some way other than drinking over them. It is more about coping with events and feelings in rational, mature ways than it is about not having those feelings at all. It is a matter of balance, not complete freedom from calamity, illness, fear, and other emotions. So Bill W., emotional sobriety meant not depending on circumstances, things, or the opinions of others to bring him happiness. This is similar to Dr. Paul's lesson in the Big Book regarding expectations being inversely proportional to serenity. On page 417 are the words, "When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation." He adds the solution. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. Online article by Rich H. Forgiving but not forgetting. Should you forgive and forget? You should absolutely forgive, but you should never forget. It's probably impossible to forget anyways. Therefore, don't kill yourself trying to forget the wrong that was done to you. This is not to say that if you maintain a relationship with a person that you should bring it up repeatedly. That would not be truly forgiving someone. Nobody forgets where they buried the hatchet. Freedom. We mentioned this in the opening of the workshop, but it's worth repeating again in this workshop. Oftentimes, the ties that bind us are more mental than physical. Here's an example. In India, one method of training elephants is to tie an elephant to a tree with a thick, heavy chain, and thereby severely restricting its movement and almost immobilizing. After a long time of its treatment, all an elephant handler has to do is tie a rope around the elephant and put a stake in the ground to keep the elephant in place. The elephant is so conditioned to thinking that it is unable to move that some of them have been found dead in place after a fire. All the elephant had to do was try to move and it would have escaped the fire. But it thought it was still chained to a tree. You will benefit the most when you forgive others. It frees you. Success is the sweetest revenge. Show them that they're wrong. Get sober and stay sober. Get mad and succeed, but don't become bitter. Look at the athletes who play with a chip on the shoulder. It drives them to succeed. And pause when agitated, then think about what's your part in the situation. Could you have done something differently? Could you have avoided the situation? Every situation has a cause and effect. By becoming interested in the cause, you're less likely to dislike the effect. If someone steals from you and you find out it was to feed himself, they'll probably do the same thing if you had to. Only accept qualified statements. Ignore unqualified statements. If someone calls you the most stupid person in the world, that's not a qualified statement, since they don't know everyone in the world. Finding ways to deal with anger and resentment is critical. One way that people deal with such urges is through a process that is known as psychologically as sublimation. Through sublimation, people are able to transform unwanted impulses into something that is less harmful and often even helpful. How does sublimation work? Consider what might happen if you are overcome with anger. An emotional blow-up is one way of dealing with these feelings, but such expressions of emotion can be harmful. For instance, you might find yourself with damaged relationships and a reputation as a hothead. Rather than flying off in a fit of rage, what if you channeled those angry emotions into some type of physical activity, such as cleaning your house? You might spend a few hours angrily scrubbing down your kitchen and bathrooms. Once your feeling of frustration eventually subsides, you're left with a positive result, a sparkling clean house. This is one example of how sublimation can transform negative impulses into behaviors that are less damaging and even productive. The bottom line is that you are not powerless if you have a higher power of your understanding. You are not powerless over your fears. You can do something about your anger and resentment if they prevent you from being happily and usefully whole. Prayer and meditation are also great ways to help you deal with almost any resentment. So get out of your comfort zone until it becomes comfortable. Don't be afraid of faking it till you make it. It will become uncomfortable as heck, but do it anyway. So we do have some time before the next meeting starts at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to open up for questions and answers. Keep your questions brief and to the point. Same thing with your answer or experience, strength and hope. Responses brief and to the point. There'll be 1 minute for the question and 1 minute to share on the question. Okay, and we're also going to, you can visit our website for this and other workshops on our podcast at thru.org. And this podcast today will be available on the website in 2 to 3 days. Okay, so we're going to open it up for questions and answers, and that'll be for 1 minute. 1 minute shares. Does anyone have any? Oh, Sarah, come on in.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an alcoholic. I have so much anger and resentment toward my ex. Like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to actually get rid of it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I listened to everything you said, and I just don't know if I'm ready to even get rid of it. Like, I don't know, because I mean, he's still hurting me. So how am I supposed to get rid of it and deal with it? And he's still trying to hurt me. Like, so I don't understand. I don't know how I'm going to be able to get rid of it and get over it. And when he's still, actively trying to get at me and hurt me. So I don't know. That's what I got.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I had to get a divorce. I'm the one who wanted the divorce, but I had a huge resentment. The child support and all that stuff. But page 552 really worked. But I had to get away from the situation. It's a lot tougher when you're still in the situation. I haven't had resentment since my divorce over 20 years ago. So it does work, but it takes time and effort.
Okay, does anyone else want to answer that? Or all of the hands up questions? Monica, come on in.
Can you hear me? I never thought that I would get over the resentment towards my ex-husband, but my sponsor told me to pray for him for 2 weeks and his family, and it really does work. It works. It does. I don't know how. It's just because our power are greater than us. It's true. Like, the bottom line is we are not we cannot fix self with self. Only God can fix us. It's true. No human power could relieve us of really anything. So I pray for them, And it actually worked. I never thought it would, but no matter how hard it is to pray for them, I just do it. I say it, and I wish for their happiness, their prosperity, and their health, and all kinds of other things. And I just said it every day. And I wish the best for him. And he doesn't eat at me. Sometimes it's like you guys said it, you don't forget, but it doesn't rule my life anymore. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Monica. Thank you for being here and sharing. Okay, Sherry, can you go to another question?
I have so I never really thought that I had resentment, but I have been told that I can hold a grudge like it's nobody's business. So is a grudge kind of the same? It sounds stupid, but is a grudge like a resentment? Is that something I'm holding on to? Like, are those being used interchangeably? Because I didn't think I was resentful, but I can tell you what you did 1997 at 6:53 in the afternoon if I'm in a fight with somebody or whatever. So are those kind of the same thing?
Nicole, alcoholic, I would say yes. I think you need to let those go, and you need to do some writing on them. So, yeah, read
Absolutely.
552. Yes, read
Absolutely the
552.
same thing. And I put that thing on 552 in the chat. It really works, guys. It really, really works.
So
Okay.
I'm just going to add something. For me, I think of a resentment. I don't have any resentments. In order for me to have a resentment, I would want to seek revenge on a person, and they would be like all I'm thinking about 24/7. I have no resentments. So yeah, little things like, the driving down the road, someone cuts me, like none of that stuff. Those aren't resentments to me. We'll let it go. So, okay, Stacy, come on in.
Hey, Stacy here, alcoholic. Try to make this quick. So I need to work on, I have some resentment towards my family with abandoning me and things like that. But when my husband committed suicide in front of me, we had just celebrated our 10th anniversary, and he was my best friend. He was my provider. And, you go through these stages of anger and disbelief and, all the things you go through after someone passes away. And I had a big resentment towards him because I felt like you left me all alone with, our fur babies in this house and these bills and just everything I had to do on my own. And I had a resentment towards him. And then I started understanding that he was just suffering so bad that he didn't see a way out. And not that it was a solution, but I had to understand where his heart was and where his mind was. And I had to let that resentment go. But I had a big resentment towards him at first, just feeling like, how could somebody do that to somebody else and put that pain on them? But I do have other resentments that I need to work on. And that is my goal. So thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Stacy. Stacy, you didn't have an actual question, did you? You were just sharing?
Sorry, I just wanted to share. I didn't have a question.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Charlie.
I guess it was like a question, Sherry. I'm resentful for not self-care of the past, and the woulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda, browbeaten. But I guess being hard on myself is where the resentment's at, and I just kind of need some support on that subject. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Mr. Charlie, for being here and sharing. Okay, Christine, come on in.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm an alcoholic. I just stumbled upon this meeting, and what a great reading. And I definitely have a resentment towards my ex-husband. I just left in December and divorced in February, and married last June. So but I have been praying for him. Every time I thought, oh, he did this, I would pray, okay, God bless him. And it was like a short, quick prayer. I know it's been suggested to pray for his goodness and pray for him, everything I want for myself. But it just was like very short, like God bless him, God bless, I pray for his healing. So I started praying a little bit more, like specific, more and more. And I don't think about him 5 times a day of, what he kept of mine and what he said or whatever. And so the obsession has moved off of him. So I'm really grateful, and I'm grateful for my sobriety and for this program. And yeah, resentments. I mean, it was like all the time I would think about him, and I'm like, why am I wasting my time thinking about him? I don't talk to him. I had to hunt him down like 4 days and try to get a social to file my taxes, and finally got that, and I don't have to ever talk to him again. So I'm really grateful, and I'm going to continue to pray for him. And yeah, resentments can take us out. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for being here and sharing. Kimberly, come on in.
Hi, everyone. Kimberly, alcoholic. I didn't have a question, but I wanted to sort of answer Sarah's question there. I know they put it in the chat about, asking for what you want for yourself for the other person. I can say I do that. I honestly, almost every day I have to do that, whether it's for my ex-husband or, different friends or different people, men especially, that I've seen them, move on with their lives. And here I am still a single person with my 2 kids and this and that. And the jealousy gets to me so much. And every single time I feel that jealousy, which eventually turns into resentment, I really do. I stop, I sit there and I ask my higher power to give them everything that I want for myself. And I have really, truthfully, I thought it was insane when someone suggested I do that. I was like, yeah, right. Like, this is going to work. But it truly does. The more I do it, the more it goes away. It really does. It seems so insane and like impossible that would work, but it truly does. So I really suggest trying that. Even if, who cares? You do it and it doesn't work. Okay, at least you tried something. But it's worked for me. So I just wanted to say that and, show that there really is somebody out there who's doing it and it's worked for. So I hope you can get something from that. Thanks.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for being here. Yes, amazing. I love it. Lala, come on in.
Hello, my Zuku family. It's Lala. I'm never nervous to talk to you guys, but this subject is making my stomach turn because the biggest and probably singular resentment is about my mother. And I'm like, I've been desperately trying to forge a relationship with her. This means so much to me that like I can't even breathe right now when talking, but she recently, me and my mother just buried my grandmother like last month. So, but we were working together. We kept her home the whole time, cleaning her and lifting her. And my grandma's not a little person. She's a big lady. So, it was teamwork, which before that, me and my mother hadn't spoken for maybe 3 or 4 years because of what I was doing. So, and then right after the funeral, because I was living with my grandmother for like 7 years. I've been right there with her. My mom goes, oh, you got 2 weeks and you got to be out. So whatever. It's basically, I feel like she baited and switched me. Like she baited me. She said, oh, we can take baby steps. I see you doing better. We can maybe have a relationship, but I'm not getting hurt by you anymore. That's what she said. And then as soon as my grandma died, she's like, you got to be out. And she knows I'm in my early recovery right now. So I don't feel like supported by her at all. So my question is, I just bought a really nice Mother's Day card. I can't remember the last time I made a card. It was that long ago when I gave my mom a Mother's Day card. what the hell should I write in there? We always, she's decided that she's right back to not wanting anything to do with me. And obviously I need to let her go because of, I'm like shaking right now, my hand, thinking about this, but I had to let her go and stop like being the baby who wants her mother's love, because I can't have it. It's not for me. So I want to just love her from far away. But what should I write in that Mother's Day part?
Lala, just write from your heart. Whatever your heart is telling you, your higher power is going to direct you as to what to write. Only write from your heart. That's all you can do. There's no right or wrong. It's writing from your heart. As long as you write from your heart, that's what should be. Okay? So pray on it before you write. You'll be okay.
Yeah, John Alcoholic. If you and my sponsor, I would say write something, run it by me. We go over it, and then you send it. I wouldn't send it just based on what you write. If you have a sponsor, go over it with your sponsor. I sent you my phone number in the chat. If you want to write it up, go over it with me, and then we'll draft something. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, Christy, come on in.
Hi guys, Christy, alcoholic. Hold on, I'll pass. My kids are being loud. Excuse me.
Okay, it's okay. Stephanie, come on in.
Morning, family. I'm Stephanie, alcoholic. I didn't remember that this was going to be a workshop today. I'm really glad I tuned in. My dad passed yesterday, and I've shared this before in the women's meeting. He and I butted heads my entire life, and there were some things that were said. Something about resentment leads me to revenge. And, I was always doing everything. I was doing everything I could to do the opposite of what my dad expected. And there's some resentment there, and I thought I dealt with that. But right now, at this moment, I'm feeling like I need to deal with that resentment. And I guess my question has kind of been answered. But the other thing is, right now I just have these images of what he looked like yesterday, and what he's looked like for the past 6 weeks. And it makes me feel sick to my stomach. It makes me sad. I haven't cried yet, but everything that I've heard today is going to be really useful to me. I'm going to go back to all those pages that have been mentioned, and that sublimation thing, changing. I'm going to work on changing my negative emotions and the negative images into something positive. Whether it be action or memories or whatever. And I'm going to really seek out the positive instead of dwelling on the negative. So this has been really helpful to me. And I guess I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to share. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. And I'm so sorry for your loss. I know you were struggling, so really happy you're here. So, Christy, can you share now?
Yes, sorry about that. Christy, alcoholic. I realized I had a substance use disorder issue, like in my early 20s. It happened to come around the time of a friend's younger brother's death, which is not okay. So it's like, all right, what am I going to do with this information that I have? And it's like, I'm going to be a substance use counselor. Like, I'm going to get a BS in psych. So I started like working in this in my 20s. And I was like, I can't deal with this. This is so depressing. It's so triggering. So it's like, okay, so what am I going to do next? And it's like, well, I
Do you have a
guess I'll,
question, Christy?
I'm
Is it a
sorry?
question? Do you have a question or is it just a share?
No, it's just a share.
Do you have
So
a-
it's
okay.
like, what am I
Just-
going to
Just
do
1 minute.
after that? It's like, well, I guess I'll get a doctorate in pharmacy, which are things I don't actually take.
Actually, Christy,
But
this
the
is a
resentment,
no, Chris. Yeah,
no,
this is
I'm
a
getting there,
resentment
John.
workshop.
I know, I'm getting there. So do I have resentments for the process? I actually don't. I don't. Because it's brought me to the place now that I'm at, where I can like share and be open about my experiences. Am I resentful for that? Am I resentful for, you know, people being, you know, iffy in my mind? I'm like, not really, because I realized this like so long ago, and it does not cause me
Okay, thanks, Christy.
resentment.
Thank you. Wait until after the meeting for fellowship too. Okay,
All right, thank you. Bye.
thanks.
I'll pass.
Okay, John, come on in.
Yeah, hey, everybody, John Alcoholic. So I grew up hating my father. He was the impetus for me wanting to get sober at an early age. I got sober a month before my 22nd birthday. I hated the guy, and it was, some of the underlying stuff behind my alcoholism. After getting sober, my perspective had to change. I had to stop hating him, and thank him for being a great example for me. He was a great example of the type of father I did not want to be like. He was a great example of the type of man I didn't want to be like. And I broke the cycle. With my kids. Yeah, so I have to get rid of resentments. Now, as Nicole read, as a human being, you're going to get pissed off. If somebody slaps you, you wouldn't be human if you didn't get mad. But if I'm still mad about it 6 months later, then I'm the problem. Yeah, so I had to deal with the resentments, and thankfully, through the steps, I let go of the resentments up until my divorce. It was a whole new resentment, and I was able to work through that as well. I can't let people live rent-free in my mind and in my head. I can't hold on to that stuff. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you for sharing. Stephanie, come on in.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm sorry I'm driving, so I hope I don't go out. So thank you so much for this morning. We've been talking a lot about resentments that are really close resentments, like family members and spouses. What do you do about work resentments? Folks that aren't really, our emotional ties aren't that deep, but we work with each other day in, day out. What is your feedback or thoughts about handling work resentments with folks whose relationships you're not that entangled with?
Read 552. Do exactly the same thing. Handle it the same way. 552. Any type of resentment, 552. John, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a reader. I am a reader. My first 5 years, I read tons of books. There are tons of books on dealing with toxic people. We have podcasts on dealing with toxic people in your life. I read. Nowadays, you can listen to the podcast or listen to Audible, books on tape. You definitely want to keep those people at arm's length. You want to, Yeah, read some books on dealing with toxic people. I'm sure that there's even one specifically dealing with toxic people in your work life or at your workplace. So check out some of those books or podcasts. They will really help.
Yeah, Stephanie, there, like John said, there's great books and podcasts. We have a podcast too on dealing with toxic people. So check that out. And yeah, so look at our website, but there's lots of stuff out there. That's a great idea. Janine, come on in.
Hi, I am Janine and I am an alcoholic. I wanted to share something about resentment. My last relationship ended in 2019. I left him due to a lot of just narcissists, just controlling issues. And I wanted to hurt him. I wanted him, after, a year, I found out that he was cheating on me and just being very controlling because what he thought I was doing, he was doing. And I wanted to hurt him. So I never left him up until about, probably about 2 weeks ago. I'd still been with him and seeing him on the side. And it was always when I was drunk. And he'd gone through 2 girlfriends. And I told those 2 girlfriends that he was still with me. And then I kind of sat back one night and I'm like, you know what? I'm just as bad as him. And one day he just kind of like finally told me to F off. And I was drunk and I was like, you know what am I getting out of this? Me making sure that nobody else gets hurt. Well, that really isn't nothing. So I've only been sober for 4 days. To me, it's huge. I've never made it past 2. And I'm listening to this today and I'm like, you know what? I spent 5 years of my life trying to make him feel like crap and not trying to hurt him when I could have been doing so much more for myself. And I used to think about him all day long, all the things that I left in the house, the 5 years I spent with him. And I finally, when he told me to F off, I was like, you know what? I think that's what I needed. I needed him to just totally, just treat me like crap one more time. And I'm just like, done. I'm just like, I need to focus on myself because I've wasted, 5 years of trying to get sober and trying to get better in my life. And, I woke up today at 9:00, my alarm went off. It said meeting. So I got on and I started listening to this. I'm like, wow, I wasted 5 years of my life. And I'm so thankful for just the 4 days I have. And I know tomorrow's going to be 5. And I'm very glad to have found this website. And I appreciate everybody here. And I someday want to be a service person. I want to be like you guys. I want to get to a goal where, I'm not just counting days. I want to be a little bit better myself. So with that, I'll pass.
Thanks, Janine. You are exactly where you need to be. Your sobriety, I can speak from experience on your own topic, but
all right,
sobriety has to come first.
We need a time. We need a timer.
We do
5 to 11. We still have time, but who can time for us? 1 minute shares and 1 minute to respond.
I can time.
Okay. All right, Lee. Fantastic. One minute. 1 minute shares and 1 minute to respond.
Regina. Janine,
Thank you, Regina.
Your sobriety should come first and foremost. And we have great women's meetings and get connected to the group here. But congratulations on your day count too. You're doing great. Okay, Holly, come on in.
Hi, I'm Holly and I am an alcoholic. This was great for me to listen to all of the shares. Thank you for everybody who shared. I'm coming back to the program after being away for a long time. And I never really thought of myself as having anger issues, but I've recently admitted to myself that I do. And I think I tend to be the kind of person, I don't really
30
lash
seconds,
out
please.
at other people, but I think I turn my anger inwards. And that's part of the reason I think I drink. And alcohol doesn't work for me anymore because I'm afraid I'm going to drink myself to death. And so I want to know, I'd like to hear about how specifically AA has helped some people get over their anger that they turn inwards. If anybody has to share on that, thank you.
Because we're down to very short time, I'm going to ask you to stay till after the meeting. We do have fellowship right after, and I'm sure lots of people can share with you. Okay, Holly, but you're in the right place, exactly where you need to be.
Actually, I have the answer. I have
Okay,
the solution. It's the 12 steps. That's what we've been talking about. Get
yeah.
a sponsor, take the steps.
Okay, Craig, come on in.
Good morning, my name's Craig. I'm an alcoholic. Upon awakening, I asked God to direct my thinking today. Get me away from me, because if I have resentments, I can't help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you. Always to the point. Allison, come on in.
Hey, Allison, alcoholic. I kind of wanted to touch on resentments towards people that aren't in your family. For me, I did the 5th step with my sponsor on it. I do 552. I do the 7-step prayer. And one of the things my sponsor said was, we want to change these situations so that we can be comfortable, but it's our desire for those people to be different that's making us uncomfortable. And so when I look at it that way, it helps a lot, because I have serious resentment towards
30 seconds, please.
You got it. And then there's a book called A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps, and they have this thing that's called self-soothing palms down. So you put your palms down and you say, please, like you empty out all the things you're having issues with, and then you flip your palms up and ask for, like, basically, like, to receive any kind of goodness that can help with clarity. And so that's what I've got. And then like John said, like I was angry. I hadn't been going to meetings, so I didn't have my sobriety. I was sober, but not sobriety. And I've been going to meetings 3 times a day, and that's relieved. So I appreciate these steps, and I'm working steps, and I'm working with people. So it helps. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. You're doing great. Thank you. Katie, come on in.
Hey everybody, I'm Katie. I'm an alcoholic. Dealing with resentments is hard for me. However, I had a sponsor one time and she said the best thing to me. And I was saying things like, how could he do this to me? How could they do this to me? And she said, they're not doing this to you. It's just what they do. And that really had an impact on me, because it wasn't personal anymore. It took me out of it. And then it's just, it's just behavior. It's just dealing with others' behaviors. And I think people act the way they do for a reason. And some of us are sicker than others. And, I'll go to any length. I've got a God box that I'll use when I'm in a really bad resentment. I do the meditations. You can find addiction resentment meditations online. I'll do those. Affirmations. I'll really go to any length to get rid of resentments, because I just simply can't have them, and I don't want them, and I don't have to. And 552 tells you exactly what to do. So hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for being here and sharing. Michelle, come on in.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. I had a real bad resentment against myself and against God. And someone told me to, and I couldn't let go of it. And I don't know if it was because I didn't want to, but whatever. Someone told me to pray to be willing, and for God to give me a willing heart, for my higher power to give me a willing heart. And that was life-changing for me. So, and when I find myself holding on to a resentment, I go back to that. If it's against someone else, okay, please make me willing, show me where, you know what I mean, where I can fix this. And he always shows up and shows out. I agree with John. It's in the 12 steps, your higher power, and your sponsor. Thanks for letting me share. I hope y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you for your share. Kinsey, come on in. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hi, I'm Kinsey, and I'm an alcoholic. And I just wanted to touch on the resentments against work friends or just people you work with, because I felt called out to say something. George, who I've worked with forever, he's like my work dad. He basically got me my job. I see him every single day, but I've always resented him because he was a big resentment. And I got through it with the 4th step, but I still have to keep in check. And but it's just because of how he works and just little things. And one of the things that I realized that really helped me was just loving him for who he is, and realizing that just because he doesn't work the same way that I do doesn't mean he's annoying. And I just have to realize how much I love him. And he actually said that to me when he asked me what my tattoo meant. It was my sobriety date. And I told him, and I said, yeah, thanks for not judging me. And he was like, I will love you unconditionally, Kinsey, because that's just the relationship we have. And I thought, damn,
30
like I
seconds,
will love,
please.
thank you. I will love you unconditionally too. So if a lot of the times work friends or things that I have resentments to, they're just fake. And it's just because they don't work the same way I do. Just love them. And that's all I wanted to share. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Kinsey. I like that. Thank you for being here. Kim, come on in.
Hi, good morning, alcoholic. So I needed to hop on a meeting because of something that just happened. And this is the resentment. My sponsor knows. We've talked a little bit about it where I'm not at the steps yet to be able to get rid of this thing other than just praying and doing the 552. But I just spent 40 minutes on the phone with my ex-husband, and I don't know why I entertained this malarkey. He wasn't being malicious or mean. In fact, it's gone completely the other way. He's moving from Florida back to Indiana. I still love this man. I didn't want the divorce. We've been divorced a long time, separated since 2006. But this man called me to talk to me about some woman he met at the casino. The resentment is so bad right now. Y'all, it is so bad. The pain, everything is just coming back tenfold. Just tenfold. And so resentments are huge because right now I want to get in my car and I want to go to the bar really bad. But resentments are huge. They're huge. So, and I know I've got to get rid of this. I've got to work on it and I have to get rid of it, and it's going to have to be sooner rather than later. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. And I would read 552 and talk to your sponsor and work the steps, like John said. Working the steps. That's a big part of it. Okay. That ends. We don't have any more questions. So this ends the workshop, and we're going to end with the Lord's Prayer. We have a meeting coming up at 11:30, and we'll have fellowship before then. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you could all join me in thinking of all of those that are still sick and suffering in and outside of the rooms, and we'll close with the Lord's Prayer. And who wakes us up in the morning? Our Father, who art in heaven, be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, earth will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Daily bread,
Our daily bread,
our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses.
forgive those who
trespass against us, not into
lead us not into
temptation, deliver us from evil. Thine is the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Power, and the glory forever and ever.
everyone. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thank you.